Here we go. Yes, indeed. This is Law 2020. I'm your host, Rob Newton, and we have Wade Boyette with us today from the BCN Law Firm. BCN Law Firm. You hear their commercials on the air here with that great jingle. All you have to do is call 855-LAW-2020. I'm not a singer, but I play one on the radio. And I tell you what, we are taking your calls today on any legal matter whatsoever. You can call us toll-free at 855-297-9696, 855-297-9696, or you could dial us up at 21232, 21232, the BCN Law Firm. You're going to love these guys. They've been around Central Florida for a long, long time, very involved in the community. There's no doubt about that. Very involved in the community. And again, we'll give you their contact information as the show goes on. But join the show right now. Any legal question you have, 855-297-9696 or 21232. Out of the economy, which is now recovering in some areas, some sectors better than others, a growth out of this thing and out of the recession, the layoffs, the firings, the businesses going out of business, is we have a whole plethora in Central Florida now, probably more than anywhere else in the 50 states. We have a big resurgence of individual businesses starting up. You've got an idea. You've got a skill. You have a service that you provide, and you are the best there is in your business, and you can get money for doing it. But the other side of that is, you know, whether you're the baker, the builder, or the candle maker, there's something that you need to know about, and that is how to set up your company, because that can make all the difference in the world at not only the end of the week, but at the end of the year, and when you go to sell that entity. So we get Wade Boyette in the studio today. Let's talk for a little while we're taking questions about any legal matter you might have coming up against you as to what kind of companies you can establish, what are the best ideas for the best circumstances, and things that are happening right now if you have a business that you may not be aware of, because there's some reports due now, and there's some other stuff going on. So, Wade, it really is important that somebody who may be the best woodworker in the world and makes the best custom furniture, that he set up his business right.
Absolutely. And first of all, good morning.
Good morning, bud.
Another beautiful day. Wonderful.
Oh, it's perfect.
Wonderful Sunday. I'm a little beat up. I did the Monster Challenge out in Lake County. And if someone has not done it, that's a great event. They need to go out. It's a 4-mile obstacle course that you can have a lot of fun with and challenge yourself. So definitely get out and do that if you haven't.
Is that a competition, or is that something where you can just go out and get better every time you do it?
It's both. Some people compete. I did it for fun, and it's nice. Where else but in Lake County can you go? You can do a 4-mile obstacle course, and about mile 2, I looked over, and there were some exotic animals. There were zebra. There were different water buffalo.
Man.
All these exotic animals, on this beautiful farm down South Lake County. So it was nice.
I'll tell you, there's so many hidden treasures around Central Florida that people don't know about. Of course, you got the big attractions, and everybody knows about those. But there's so many hidden things, especially in Lake County. If they've never discovered the Seaplane Port in Tavares, if they've never gone up and discovered the beauty of Howey in the Hills, if they've never been down around Claremont and looked beyond the growth, beyond all the rooftops, there are some really cool things hiding in Lake County.
It's a beautiful place. Well, Rob, today, I do want to get into, choice of business entity and what to consider when setting up a business and the type of entity. But before we get into that, most business owners know that May 1st is a big date. That's the date that you have to pay your annual fee and file your annual report. And, so anyone who has a company, make sure you get your annual report in before May 1st. If not, there's a pretty substantial penalty. And if you wait too long, your company can be administratively dissolved. Most people know that because they get a form in that tells them that they should file their annual report. Another form that I'm seeing in the mail quite often is a piece of paper from a company that it looks like a governmental agency sending out the document, but it's not. It's a private company. And they send you a piece of paper that says, please fill out this piece of paper, submit $149 with your officers and directors, and we'll send you your board minutes. And I've had several clients bring them in this week telling me that they need to fill them out and get this money in, or they're going to be in violation of some, corporate rule or state law. And just for those out there that have companies that are receiving those documents, that is not something that's mandated by the state. That's not something that, SunBiz is sending out to you that you have to fill out. That's a private company who's preparing your board minutes for you and sending them to you so that you can be in compliance. It's something that you could take 5 minutes and do yourself or have your professional do. So, for those of you who are getting those documents, it's not mandatory. And in my opinion, there's a better way to spend $139.
Well, let me follow up with that question from a layman's standpoint. I do not own my own company. I work for a few companies. But if we have a company and it's Wade and Rob Incorporated or Wade and Rob Partnership, and we have our board meeting, we should write that down once a year. It's mandatory, right? It's got to be filed with our corporate papers. If I just send off a form and say, Wade Boyette is the CEO, Rob Newton is the acting manager, and they make up their own minutes, how can the state accept that as true?
Correct. I highly recommend, if you have multiple partners or multiple members in an LLC or multiple shareholders in a corporation, it's advisable. You get together once a year, you have your annual minutes, you vote on the things that are needed to be voted on, you put it in writing, and you file it in your corporate book. Then you're in compliance. If you're a sole member, if you own your own business, you sit down, you write out the important things that you did that year that you voted on, and you put it in your corporate books. That's what needs to be done.
Mm-hmm. And then there's ways that if they contact you or look up in the Office of Business and Professional Regulation in Florida where to file that and how to file it, what person it goes to and all that sort of thing?
That's correct. Or what needs to be in the minutes. Not everything needs to be in the board minutes. Some things need to be voted on. Certain things do not need to be voted on. Certain things need to go to a special meeting. Certain votes need to go to an annual meeting. All of those things are laid out in your organizational documents. So if you have good organizational documents, it should be pretty easy to follow, and you should not be, have any problems making sure you're in compliance.
Now, let me ask you this. If it gets to a point where it's a business that starts to thrive and getting bigger and they've got investors and stockholders, is that something that is mandatory to report to them, or are you required to meet with them once a year, or how is that mandated in Florida?
Well, you should have an annual meeting. Your organizational documents will spell out the annual meeting and the special meetings that you have. Every year you need to vote on the officers, you need to vote on directors, and you need to vote on anything that you're required to vote on in your operating agreement. For example, if the organization needs to borrow money, usually that's something that would be voted on by the board members. And that's something that would be in those board minutes. Also, if you go out and purchase real estate, sell real estate, mortgage a piece of property, all of those things are usually acts that require a vote by either the officers or the directors and would need to be in the board minutes.
Mm-hmm. Let me go back to something. I know this is a little bit off topic, but it's on topic. The May 1st deadline is basically upon us. The other thing that businesses sometimes mess up, I was having a great spirited conversation with a good friend of mine who's a CPA. And I do some radio with him in other markets. And he was saying that a lot of businesses fail to do this. They are supposed to be filing their taxes by a certain date, but they're also supposed to be filing their quarterly income taxes right here real quick. Correct. And so a lot of them will pay the first time but forget that second payment. Then they're in trouble.
That's correct. Well, most businesses or a lot of S corporations file their tax returns. Their tax returns are due March 15th. Individual tax returns due April 15th. And then quarterly payments are due quarterly during the year. And, it gets confusing. Then you have your sales tax that needs to be remitted to the Department of Revenue. You have employment taxes that need to be remitted to the Internal Revenue Service. There's a lot going on. And if you don't pay attention to it, it's easy to mess it up. And unfortunately, there is substantial penalties and interest that comes along with making a mistake.
Mm-hmm. All right. And dealing with that, too, and the kind of businesses you set up, one of the questions I have for Wade when we get back is, what constitutes, you start the table building process and you build good furniture. And pretty soon, you team up with a guy and he builds table lamps and you become a company, but you own the company and he just supplies the lamps. Who constitutes an employee? What are your obligations as the employer as far as withholding, workman's comp, unemployment, all of this kind of thing? Because I've got some friends who in Florida have been burnt by the state coming back and saying, you owe us, and it's not a few dollars, folks. This gets really bad, and it's employment law, and that permeates a lot of boundaries. We'll talk about that when we come back. Plus, your questions at 855-297-9696, 855-297-9696. Are you an entrepreneur? Are you thinking about starting a business, and you want to know the best way to set it up? Is it a partnership? Is it LLC? Is it an independent business? Is it a corporation? That's what we're talking about today, but any legal questions at 855-297-9696 or 21232. It's Law 2020 featuring Wade Boyette of the BCN Law Firm, bcnlawfirm.com. We'll be back with more right after three big things you need to know. 12:22, that's the time. We are live today, and we're taking any legal questions you've got. This is the Law 2020 show. The Law 2020 show is brought your way by the BCN Law Firm. These guys that are partners in the BCN Law Firm. When you sit down and talk to these guys, and so many of you know them, they have been around Central Florida, helped it grow, been involved in the community, been involved in the schools, been involved in everything to help make the quality of our lives better. And, of course, they can help you out when it comes to legal matters as well. bcnlawfirm.com, bcnlawfirm.com, or you can call them at 855-LAW-2020, 855-LAW-2020. If you're out in the Claremont area, it's a local call at 352-394-2103, 352-394-2103. You hear Brian Monk on here sometimes. You get some of the other associates on here. They help you in just about everything. And today we're talking about various business types and things like that. We'll be talking about who's an employee, who's not. Also about Florida's proposed changes and changing horizon when it comes to setting up LLCs to get more businesses to begin right here in Florida, and changing the rules, so to speak, on what's going on if you have a company. We are taking your calls again at 855-297-9696. 21232 is the text. What that means is if you go up in the recipient line of your smart device messaging service where it says recipient, just put 21232. No phone number, no address, no contact name, 21232. Then in the body, say, Wade, this is your question, and Wade will do his best. You do not have to use your real name on telephone calls or text, okay? You can call yourself, in this case, everybody call yourself Josh. Okay, it is Bill in Orlando. Bill, how can Wade Boyette of the BCN Law Firm on Law 2020 help you?
Yes, I have allowed someone to stay in my house, and now I'm in a situation where he has a lot of his possessions in it. There's no lease agreement, and, of course, he has left town now to visit his family, and I wanted to inquire about, is it possible for me to, how do I get this guy out of my house and all his possessions?
Okay, Bill, I'm going to ask you the obvious. Have you asked him to leave?
Yes, and that's the reason why he has left to go visit his relatives, is because I have instructed him that he can't stay here anymore, and so he left, but still he has, possessions here.
Right. He's probably going to be coming to gather his possessions. What I would do is, probably box his possessions up. Don't do anything that will hurt his possessions. Give him a chance to come pick them up. And if he does come back, unfortunately, you may have to go through the eviction process. I hope it does not get to that point. Hopefully, he's now going to visit his relatives to find a place to stay or to get some help, and we'll just simply come back and pick up his possessions.
Let me do a follow-up for Bill. What if he says, okay, I found a place in Atlanta with my uncle. I don't have enough money to go back and get my stuff yet. I'll just leave it there at Bill's house. How long does Bill have to put up with that?
There's actually a Florida statute that deals with property rights and what Bill would have to do to give that tenant the right to come collect his possessions before Bill could actually dispose of those possessions. So,
all right, very, very good, but we didn't get the time frame of how long do they have to maintain custody of these possessions. I mean, what if we're 2 years down the road? Is there some time frame?
It is, and it's not that long of a time frame, and I'm not going to give you an exact number because I'd have to look that up, Bill. I think it's several weeks. I'll tell you what, if you'll give me a call Monday, I can have that answer for you, and I'd be more than happy to get it for you.
Very good. And then what would the number be to call you up on Monday?
Call me at 855-LAW-2020.
I lost the center two numbers. 855
Law, L-A-W.
Okay, very good. That's
2020.
2020.
Okay, Bill, thank you. All right, does the quote tenant, and I know he's not a tenant but he's been living there. Right. I'll call him a squatter in this case. Does he have any rights at all to tell Bill, hey, I'm going to go get, I'll come down to get my stuff in a week, so don't remove it from the premises? Or does he have any claim on where that stuff can be recovered? Can Bill go ahead and lease that place to Josh?
You know, the tenant does have certain rights. And, you know, that's one thing is whenever you allow someone to come live in your home or you allow someone to rent a place from you without a document, a lease agreement, you're putting yourself usually in a month-to-month rental situation, and they have tenant rights.
Okay, even though you're not charging them, you've allowed them use of the property. I've heard of situations in Florida, and this goes back to our business situation, where somebody might own large tracts of land, and they'll go onto that tract of land and find, people living on it, and say, Mr. Sheriff, I need them removed now. And they've run into some problems.
They've run into problems with squatter rights, and unfortunately, a lot of landowners will know those people there, won't do anything to remove them for a long period of time, and then they do acquire certain rights after they've been there open and notoriously for a certain amount of time. So
does the law kind of look at it as part of your responsibility, Mr. Property owner, is you should know who's on your property at all times, and if you're not monitoring that, then after a year, you have given those people permission to be on your property.
That's correct.
Just pro se?
That's correct. You need to make sure, you need to have signs, no trespassing signs up on your property. Mm-hmm. You need to let the public know that this is not something that you're inviting someone in to stay.
Wow. And I do know that in a lot of developers' cases, they had land, they're holding the land, they're not doing anything with the land because of the economy, but they still need to be monitoring that land, don't they? Who's on it and what's happening with that?
Absolutely. Unfortunately, when you acquire land and you own land in Florida, you're responsible for it. And there are certain liabilities that come along with land ownership.
All right. Now, we are going to come back and talk about some changes in the LLCs. We're going to be changing business categories and classifications in Florida, and also how you go about setting up a business in Florida. What does it take? What constitutes, another conversation I had with a tax attorney last week, what constitutes a business in Florida? If Josh starts building, chaise lounges, and then pretty soon he's got 56 people that want to buy a chaise lounge for, $300 each. Is he a business, or is that a hobby? Or is he just a nice guy who's going to sell you something at a flea market? Well, we're going to find out about that with Wade Boyette, because where do your liabilities begin and end? All right? If somebody falls off that chaise lounge or it falls apart. All right, we're going to answer questions about businesses coming back right on Law 2020, brought to you through the auspices of the BCN Law Firm on News 96.5. Hey, welcome back. We're asking the experts all weekend long right here On News 96.5. Got to remind you, tomorrow morning at 5 o'clock, bright and early, the only all-news morning show right here on News 96.5. Joe Kelly and a team of people worldwide bringing you up to date on everything you need to know as you're getting to work, as well as Triple Team Traffic and Severe Weather Center 9. All right, this is Law 2020. Law 2020 is brought your way by the BCN Law Firm. They're right here in Central Florida, have been for years, and this is a combination of some really, really involved attorneys who have put all of their talents, their knowledge, their expertise of the law together and put together one whale of a law firm. We'll tell you this. Each one of these shows, if you're new to Ask the Experts, each one of these shows, these are companies who invest in this time and yet give you the chance to participate in the program. They're not infomercials. They are ways for you to ask questions, to ask about your legal problems, to ask about laws that you may not be clear on, something you heard over the water cooler, something that you misunderstood maybe from the headlines in the Sentinel. Any of that stands. So all you need to do is call us 855-297-9696 or 21232. Any legal question that you got about any legal facet of your life right now, get an expert opinion. Now, we're talking about businesses today and what is going on business-wise in Florida. And Wade, you made the comment to me during a break that a lot of people will hear advertisements for Delaware or Nevada. Oh, set up your corporation here because it's easy and you can do it for, X number of dollars, and it's a lot easier to set up your corporation there than where you are currently. How does that work? And do you have to be a corporation in the state in which you're located? And what is Florida trying to do to accommodate more business people?
And I'll definitely go over that, Rob. Let me clarify one thing earlier when the gentleman called in and we started briefly talking about squatters' rights.
Yeah.
Squatters, there is no squatters' rights in Florida, but squatters they can make it difficult on a landowner. And the one right, I guess it's not a squatter's right, it's a rule in Florida real estate law called the law of adverse possession. And that's where someone sits on your land openly and notoriously for a certain period of time, 7 years, where after a certain amount of time, if you know they're there and you don't take action, they can legally acquire title to your property. So there is the law of adverse possession, but that's the only squatter's rights in the state of Florida. Okay,
very good. And let's go to Josh in Orlando. No doubt using my advice, you can change your name. And tell us what's going on, bud.
Hey, not much. I just had a question about starting a business. If you owe back taxes as an individual, what's your legal responsibilities if you start an LLC or corporation?
Josh,
how does that affect, the business's tax liabilities?
And Josh, those are individual income tax liabilities that you're behind on?
Correct, yeah.
Yeah, there would be no liability on the new business entity. In fact, one of the things that you could do is you could set up a business entity, whether that be an S corporation, an LLC, or a partnership, and your individual tax liabilities would not carry over to the business that you started.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, so let's get back to the business types and what is Florida trying to do to make itself even more business friendly than it is. Our employment's going up, the economy's improving, it's looking pretty good.
It is. One of the things that happened last June in 2013, Florida revised its Limited Liability Company Act. And one of the reasons it did that was to bring it more in line with the Uniform Limited Liability Company Act and make it a little more favorable, very similar to what Delaware does. And, some of the changes were, not big on their face. There were a few major changes that people need to be paying attention to. The act, any company filed after January 1st of 2014 is going to be subject to the new act, which the new statute is Section 605 of the Florida statutes. It was Section 608. And if you have not revised your company, or it's not a company that has been formed after January 1, 2014, at the end, in January 1st, 2015, even if you have not revised your documents, they are going to be subject to the new law. So it's something that you do need to talk with your professional about. One of the major changes, a lot of LLCs, where corporations have a president, a vice president, secretary, treasurer, LLCs had managers and managing members.
Mm-hmm.
In a lot of LLCs, the managing member had certain authority to bind the LLC and to perform certain acts. Under the new law, they do not recognize managing members. So for those companies that are set up to be operated by a managing member, at the end of this year, they will not recognize a managing member. And what that means is that all of the members have the authority to bind the LLC. And, if you and I form a business and we go out and get 3 or 4 buddies to form a business, a lot of times there's going to be one person who will be the decision maker.
Yeah.
You don't want everybody to be able to bind the entity without the vote or approval from the others. So, you got to be careful. If you are a managing member LLC, you want to take a look at that. You can still appoint a manager. You can revise the operating agreement so that only one member or only one manager has the authority, but that's definitely something you want to take a look at. Something else that a lot of people set up LLCs were doing, they heard, and it was rightfully so, that if they set up an LLC, it gave them a little more asset protection than an S Corp or certain other entities in Florida.
Right.
And for multiple member LLCs, that's still the case. But a lot of people set up LLCs as a single member LLC. And last year there was a case, and that was actually a couple years ago, called the Olmstead case. And what they ruled in that case was that if you're a single member LLC, that the sole remedy that's normally available to LLCs, which is the charging order, isn't going to be the only remedy a creditor has for a single member LLC, that they're going to treat you very similar to how they would treat you if you were an S Corp, and they will allow that creditor to take your membership interest and liquidate the entity. So it gives a creditor a lot more power when you're a single member LLC. So a good, is if you have those types of entities, either a single member LLC or a multiple member LLC, I encourage you to take a look at your operating agreement so that you can put things in place to deal with this new act and deal with the case law, the Olmstead case.
Where do they find details on this?
The statute, the new statute number, section 605. If you feel like you can sit down and read that and learn, it's something that you can definitely do. I don't encourage that. I would go and talk to a professional that handles LLC or business law. Also Google's such a great thing. You can Google the Florida Revised Limited Liability Company Act, and you can get the basics out there. I mean, it's a great way to summarize things. It doesn't make you an expert by any means. I wouldn't rely on that in going out and drafting your operating agreement. I would definitely hire a professional to draft the operating agreement.
Right.
I would also be careful because, a lot of people go out and buy form documents.
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of those form documents have been sitting on shelves or have been out there and have not been revised. And if you're not familiar with what to look for, you can be buying documents that have not been revised for this new Florida Limited Liability Company.
Now, let me ask you that. In light of what you brought up as far as these changes that have been made, does that require a LLC to have a meeting and come back and say, are we complying with every facet of the new law?
Yeah, they should have, right. The managers and the members should have a meeting, and they should discuss the changes. There are certain changes that they will need to make decisions on. There were not some certain non-waivable provisions in the old act. There were 6 or 7 non-waivable provisions. There's 17 now under the new act that those managers and those members need to vote on. Also, they need to vote to authorize the LLC to make the changes to bring them into compliance. Those are the types of things that should be in the minutes that we were talking about earlier that go into your corporate book. You should definitely include those types of things that were voted on at the meeting and in the minutes, include those in the book.
Okay. And so these are things that need to be done. So you need to get everybody together. And it's got to go into that annual report. And when does that report due again? Annual
report's due every May 1st.
Ooh. So we better get together for dinner, folks out there, if you got a business.
And your changes can be made whatever your corporate year is. Most corporations are set up on an annual accounting system. So most of their year ends are December 31st.
Oh, okay, very good. All right, we are going to be taking and if somebody can't get together for May 1st, they can go ahead and make these changes later in May, right?
That is correct.
All right, we're going to take a break. If you have questions about this or you have questions during the week, you can also contact the BCN Law Firm, and always better to be safe than sorry so you don't run into start getting some penalties or have people having access to your, to your assets. But you can call the show right now if you got questions, follow-up questions, 855-297-9696, 855-297-9696, or text us at 21232. That's 21232. We'll be back. I'll give you the contact information on the BCN Law Firm when we get back. Get out a pencil and paper. You're listening to News 96.5. We are back. Yes, this is Law 2020 featuring the BCN Law Firm, Wade Boyette. And if you want to get a hold of them during the week, it's really simple. I mean, it's just so simple. Just write this down, 855-LAW-2020, or sing it to yourself once. And it's kind of like It's a Small World at Disney. That'll be on your mind for the rest of the day. 855-LAW-2020. All right. And we have with us, of course, Wade Boyette. We are taking your calls right now. We always get follow-ups during the last break. We always do. 855-297-9696 or 21232. And again, we're setting up Pamela's call. And after Pamela's call, I do want to talk to Wade about, okay, do you have a business? What constitutes a business in Florida? If you set up by the side of the road and you are selling plants that you grew in your own garden, or you're selling peanuts, or you're boiling peanuts and taking them out there, what constitutes a business right here in the Sunshine State? Pamela, what is your question?
Yes, I'm waiting for 3 titles that I've paid 3 trailers off in a trailer park. I don't own the land, but I own the trailers, and they keep saying, well, we'll get them for you. We can't find them now. I was just wondering what I had to do to get my titles.
Hey, Pamela, did you finance that with a bank? Did you make your last payment to the bank?
I financed it through Victory Properties, where I got the trailers.
Okay, so and they just haven't. When was the last time when did you make your final payment?
When did I make my final payment?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, one of them's been about 5 years, the other one's going on 3 years, and the other one's going on about 4 years.
And they still have not sent you your title to your trailer?
No.
Okay. What they need to do, if they can't find them, you can recover lost titles in Florida, through the DMV. And, it should be their obligation to help you in acquiring your lost title. If you've paid those off, I would definitely recommend that you go through the process of establishing lost title and getting title to those trailers so that you can have it in your possession.
Okay.
And if you need my help in doing that, I'd be more than happy to help you. I had to do that. I helped a real estate developer. We ended up having to get about 60 trailers off of a piece of property, actually up in the Lady Lake area. And so we had to reestablish about 40 of those lost titles. So if you need some help in doing that, let me know.
Yeah, well, I told the lady I'd like to have it because I would like to get my last will and testimony, together for my son.
Absolutely.
And I can't really do it with no titles.
Well, you could still do a will before you get the titles back, and I could definitely help you with that also. But I definitely, in getting your housekeeping in order, I would definitely get those titles in your possession.
So I need to call you next week?
Yes, ma'am. Just give me a call anytime.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, and Pamela, that is 855-LAW-2020, 855-LAW-2020. Okay, we do have, where did that, let's see, we had a caller and we lost him. Oh, caller, call back because that was a great question. Had a bunch of people in a business, and some of them have merged their holdings to take over the business.
Okay.
Interesting situation. What constitutes a business in Florida?
Well, anyone trying to do an act to make a profit is, operating as a business. There's several forms of business. if one person goes out, like you were talking about, and operates a peanut stand, they're a sole proprietor. They're operating a business for the purpose of making a profit. They're a business. It's what other type of legal entities other than a sole proprietor are there? There's trust. There's corporations, both C corporations, S corporations. There's LLCs, and the LLCs, is an entity that can be taxed as an S corp partnership or trust. There's general partnerships, limited partnerships. There's a multitude of different business entities in the state of Florida.
Mm-hmm. And to understand what you are, I guess you'd need to contact an attorney.
Well, from a general business standpoint, a lot of clients come in and they have ideas, business ideas, and they sit down with me and, they talk to me about the ideas and ask about forming a corporation or an LLC. And what I encourage a lot of the owners to do, unless it's some type of business with, a high risk of liability, I encourage them to operate as a sole proprietor for a while. Why spend a lot of money on a professional before you know if you can make a dime? I want to make sure you're going to be a successful business and that you can operate before you spend the money setting up an entity that's going to require tax returns to be filed every year, that annual report to be filed every year, and to have other administrative costs.
How does one go about setting up themselves as a sole proprietor? Is there paperwork? They got to open a bank account? What?
Just go and open a bank account up, get a tax identification number with the state of Florida, and start acting. Yep, start working, And if you are operating a peanut stand, please call me because that's one of my favorite places to stop when I'm traveling.
There you go. And, of course, you've got liability, so you need to be a company of some sort to protect yourself no matter what you're doing. Richard and Eustace, we're lining you up right now. Go ahead, buddy. You're on the air.
I have a question. I filed an excusal in a jury duty summons on religious grounds and was denied. Do I have recourse?
You're trying to get out of serving jury duty, Richard?
Yes.
Have you called and asked to be recused?
Actually, I filed an excusal.
Okay, and what have they allowed you to get out of the jury duty?
No, they didn't.
Okay, what you should do is, and I'm not the one that handles the litigation. I'm a transactional attorney in our office. What you should do is call one of our litigation attorneys. And
1 minute, I can hardly hear you.
Oh, okay, sorry about that, Richard. What I would do is call one of the litigation, call Eileen and our Brian Muck in my office at 855-LAW-2020 and ask them, for what grounds can you get out of serving jury duty? I know it is pretty tough to get out of serving on jury duty in the state of Florida.
Oh,
So,
did you have a follow-up question, Richard?
I couldn't hear his advice.
Okay, give our office a call on Monday, tomorrow, if you would, and I will put you in touch with one of the litigation attorneys, and my number is 855-LAW-2020.
Okay, 855-LAW-2020, Richard. Just call and ask for a litigation attorney tomorrow. They're always willing to give you a few minutes of free legal advice, and you can follow up from there and choose your course of action. Okay, once again, the number to contact the firm is 855-LAW-2020. You can look up the law firm at bcnlawfirm.com, bcnlawfirm.com. And again, Wade, am I correct in saying that just about any legal remedy people can call you guys to get your advice or your direction?
Absolutely. We've got 11 attorneys in the office and over 30 staff members, and we handle a little, every practice area, there's someone who is there to handle and has a specialist in that area.
All right, very good. Thanks to Wade Boyette, and thanks to Josh for pushing all the right buttons. We continue to ask the experts all weekend long. And, of course, Dave Wall is in the newsroom, our veteran newsman, with all the news 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, right here on News 96.5.